Hi friends, happy January 19th, MLK Day. Sadly, I was not able to participate because I was in the hospital with my daughter. She's okay, it was pre-planned, but anyways, I came on here today to talk to you about planning. So what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of things, but I'll get into a little bit. Hi friends who I haven't seen in a while. This winter is kicking my butt. Not a fan, but hopefully there'll be sunnier and brighter days ahead. Anyways, I want to share some things with you. I'm going to have some notes so that I can provide correct information. But these are some crazy times, as we can all attest to, yeah? Okay. And not everything is following logic or a plan or what we thought. And so it should be a time where we pause and kind of think, yeah? So one thing that I've been deep into is planning for illness, sickness, death. Sounds morbid, but shouldn't be. The only thing that is consistent and that we will all, every single human person will experience is death. Just some interesting facts I'll share with you. Let me pull them up quickly. So between 56 and 63 million people die per year. That's a lot of people. 150 to 170 per day, 6,000 to 7,000 per hour, 100 to 120 per minute, and 2 die in a second. So I've been on for, a couple minutes. Already 200 people have died. So what does that mean? Well, the reason why I've been thinking about this is I'm of a certain age. I'm 50, so squarely, above middle age, yeah. But also I have been training in end of life or death doula work. So it may sound morbid or odd, but again, it's something that we will all experience. Every single one of us will die. But there's a young man who I learned about recently who passed when he was a teen. And he said something that I thought was very smart. He had a type of cancer and he died. And he said before he was dying, he said, you don't have to find out you're dying to start living, because he started doing some things that were dreams of his. And so I hope that you'll find that as you start to think about your own life and your death, that it might inspire you to make a change. Do some things that you've wanted to do that you've decided not to do, or that you've put off, or someday. No day is promised, right? Like, this is not a doom and gloom. This is not a make us anxious, because it's already a very stressful time happening, at least where I am in the United States. So cortisol, being up is true. Anxiety is true for a lot of people. So that's not what this is. This is more an aspect of being empowered. So think about something mundane, like you had a bunch of errands to do, you had some friends coming over for dinner, and so you had a plan. Okay, I'm going to run these errands, I'm going to put a load of laundry in, I'm going to clean the house so it's nice and clean for my friends, I'm going to do some shopping, I'll cook a little bit before they come, and we can, maybe if you imbibe, we're going to have some wine, I'm going to get some mixed drinks, I'm going to do, but you've gotten written all out, right? Or you've planned it over several days. That dinner party or that hang or whatever it is going to be a heck of a lot more interesting, exciting, well put together, thought through, where your friends feel, wow, she really went the extra mile. They're going to feel that a lot more than something disheveled, haphazard. You order takeout, which nothing wrong with that, but there's a different level of something that's prepared and planned, and you made your signature dish that your friend really loves or what have you, right? They've gone through a rough time, and this is just like your way of showing love. So how different is it for something that's mundane, that's a small thing? It's eating. I mean, thankfully we can eat, right? But it's so mundane. What about something so large as our life and our end of life? And we don't talk about it. I'll read a statistic. So this is from a study from Kaiser Family Foundation from 2016. And so about 9 years old. And they say most Americans say death is a subject that people generally avoid. And about 70% agree with that. Only 69% avoid, 26% said they feel free to talk about it. I would wager that it's smaller than that. People just really are not talking about death. And again, it's something that's certain. And as I've talked, hundreds of people have already, their lives have ended. That study also showed that making sure family is not burdened by your care, so taking care of you, that is 87% of both extremely and very important. But how do we know that that's not going to be an issue if we're not planning it? Another large percentage, 85% of those in that same study, the Kaiser Family Foundation, 85% said making sure their wishes for medical care are followed. So if you're in a situation where your spouse, your parents, your BFF, and you're the person taking care of them, is in a situation you haven't had the discussion with them, and it's not written down, and it's not clear, and it's not concise on what they want, how do you know? How do you know? Do you have a living will? Do you have a directive? Do you have a proxy designated? And is that written? And is that available? And is that something that, especially if you're sickly, that your medical team has? It's not very often that we're checking yes to most of those boxes. And you might think, well, Rachel, I'm healthy. I'm only 30, I'm only 40. Yeah, but you can get sick. You could be out being healthy. I had an injury that I'm not even 100% healed from, and it's been 9 months. If it had been worse, you could be out being active. You can get a traumatic brain injury, right? You could have something where your faculties are not 100%, and so you can't make decisions for yourself. You think about older folks, we've got dementia, we've got Alzheimer's, maybe 1 minute, the family member, let's say it's your dad, he's lucid and able to talk, and then the next minute thinks he's back in 1940. You're like, Dad, it's 2026. You could have something as small as a tube down your throat, doesn't seem small, and not able to adequately describe what you need. So those are all things that we should be thinking about regardless of our age. Again, look at what's going on in this crazy country. You just never know. And then if we take that a step further, let's say that you have been diagnosed with something, or a family member has. Or prior to that, you might say, sorry, let me back up. What is your end of life plan? So do you have your health? Do you have your financials? We talked about the health part. Do you have the financials? What if you have children? What's set up for that? Do people know does your family know how to access the mutual funds, stocks, things that you've got, your life insurance? I mean, eventually maybe they'll find it, combing through things, digging through things, breaking in to passwords. But what if the money is needed now? What about your personal items? You have that beautiful ruby ring that your grandmother gave, and you want to make sure that your niece who compliments you on it every Christmas gets that, right? You don't want it sold. You don't want someone else. How is that designated? And we're not just talking about wills. We're talking about just end of life advanced planning, and then taking that step down on if we are diagnosed with some kind of an illness, a terminal illness, and or we're sickly, have a short duration of life because of our illness, or you have something, or it could be an elderly person, right? So do you know with 100% certainty what that family member wants? Did you know there's something called a living funeral? Pretty cool. Meaning you have kind of a little shindig and you talk about the person while they're alive, and they can in fact hear about themselves. What about their legacy? Do you want to leave a legacy? Have you thought about that? It doesn't have to be some big, huge thing. It could be a project. It could be something that you're leaving to share with the next generation, because books are being erased, friends. History is being erased. So maybe you're sharing something with your family and you want that passed down. Maybe it's something you want passed down in your community, in your church, something culturally. Those are all important things. And what about your dying plans? In the doula world, and like I said, I got certified as an end-of-life doula. There's something called a good death. And I'm using air quotes because people are like, what the hell is a good death? Like, if you die, that's bad. No, it's the opposite, or kind of parallel with life, right? There's with being born. But in the doula world, a good death is one in which you are able to, as easily as possible, and I understand some people have certain illnesses and it can be not so easy, but as easy or as planned, again, the planning, as possible, you die in your terms, where it's you're empowered, you're at peace, you're tranquil. What does that look like? For me, I love music. I have music going all the time. Depends on my mood, what it is. I'm dancing, I'm singing. I cannot imagine if I were sickly that my kid has me in a room where it's cold. I hate being cold. And where it's totally quiet. Sometimes I like quiet, but I really love music. Maybe I want some chill yoga music and I don't want anything hype, but I want something, right? What does that look like? What are the smells? Who's there? Are you someone that you want people all around you, or you just want a couple of folks that are in your circle, whether they're family or not, like your tribe? What does it feel like? I love soft, warm items. Some people would hate that. What's the touch like? Are there scents? Are you being rubbed down with lotion? Give me cocoa butter and shea butter all day. Okay. So those are all the things that, as an end-of-life doula or specialist, that I help with. And then you think about your caregivers. So those are folks, could be, so let's just use a situation. So I'm, sandwich generation, right? Where I'm a Gen X taking care of boomer or silent generation parents. And so you need rest. You need respite. You need a plan for you. Maybe you've got things taken care of for mom in terms of her meds and her special diet girlfriend. You see caregivers. My mom was a caregiver for my dad while he was dying. This has been many years ago. And I saw just how it took years off of her. And so you need a plan for that. And he passed in 2000, so it's been a really long time. But now it's like, when you know better, do better. So having a plan for the caregiver, for respite, for what does it look like for that individual. And then post-death, obviously you've got the death part. We talked a little bit about that, but post-death services, going through items, which hopefully if we plan in advance, we don't have too much of that. And I think about it like this. When I was having my daughter, I was like, okay, I'm very hippy dippy. If you don't know, that's natural. And I didn't want any drugs. And I wanted to, I did go to a hospital, but I had midwives, which midwives are freaking awesome. In my next life, I'll be a midwife. I had a very detailed plan, and I printed my little plan, and I brought it. I had a doula as well, a childbirth doula. And I printed my little plan, and I made sure the nurses, the midwives had my plan. They're like, okay. And they didn't brush me off, but they all knew, right? This was my first baby. They all knew that things don't always go as planned. And my birth did not go exactly as planned. But because I had a plan, because I had researched, like I've researched so much now with the dying process, the death and dying process as an end-of-life doula, I was able to shift. So I didn't go from, no, I don't want any drugs, to now I need drugs because they're doing certain things that are making my body incapable of stopping and not having a natural childbirth. I researched the heck out of it. I watched videos, I talked to people, I did so much research. So when things did have to change, and when the kid didn't want to come, she took 26 hours, natural, hello, I had a plan. And this is no different. It's no different. Why is it something that with 100% certainty, we will all die? Your neighbor next to you that you don't like, who plays whatever music, this person down the street, your grandmother that you love, you don't want to think about it, she's gonna die. I will die. We will all die. And so let's be smart and let's have a plan in place. I have a couple of quotes that I want to share. Just one actually, because I shared the other one earlier. It says, it's a Chinese proverb, be not afraid of going slow, be afraid only of standing still. So folks, I invite you to reach out to me. I have my end-of-life death doula services, and we can talk through these one-on-one. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. And a lot of times our first reaction is, I'm just gonna throw my hands up. I'm just gonna ignore it. Sorry, friend. It's still gonna come for you. So if you are interested in chatting more, I would love to chat. I believe I have not gone live in a million years, so I don't know. I believe I put my little link there, but in case it didn't work, it's Tranquil Endings, and it's on Canva. So it's tranquilendings.my.canva.site, S-I-T-E. I'm not going to spell Tranquil Endings, but Tranquil Endings with an S, .my.canva, CANVA.SITE. All right, friends. Well, I hope that this was at least helpful and got your wheels turning. Whether you talk to me, you talk to someone else, just make a plan. Make a plan and execute the plan. Don't have this as something that's in your drawer at work when you work from home or in your safe. You know, you should have for your advanced directives and your health plans and your proxies and all of that, that should be easily accessible. And again, that should be something that family knows where it is, neighbors might know where it is, and is provided to your healthcare professionals. For some of the other things like your financials, those are things, in a past life I was a financial advisor, those are things that I saw it so much where widows would come in. Most of the time it was women. I'm not saying that in like a negative way, it just was. The husband handled the finances, the wife was clueless on everything. Didn't have money to pay the mortgage, didn't know how anything worked. 2026, we're not doing that, okay? And then our good death that I explained earlier about what does that look like? For me, it's gonna be a little jazzy, a little, a little music, little soft stuff going on, some smell good, some rub down, some mache and my cocoa butter. But what does that look like for you? What does that look like for you? And has that been communicated to your family? Is it written? We can say all the things, but it's not written. And we don't know. God forbid, it could be an accident. You've told your spouse, you both are in a car accident. Now what? So let's plan, let's be proactive, let's understand that tomorrow is not promised, and one thing that is certain is our death. But we're not going to be afraid about that. We're going to be empowered by it, we're going to plan for it, and we're going to have a situation where we know that when our time comes, we'll be ready. We'll have a good time. Thank you, friends. My thing keeps saying slow connection. I'm not really sure why, so I apologize if it's being weird. If you want to reach out to me, I believe my link is there, I'm hoping. tranquilendings.my.canva.site. Be good, everybody.